I was trying
Well,
to center it down, but
it's
anyway.
okay. I think that first 10 minutes is where they go into that quote anyway. So that was,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So yeah, you take it away now.
Well, and to, I always do research on folks that I'm going to talk to. And so uh,
Maybe I
before
should.
I talked to Mercury, I started watching a couple of videos, and two of them had you in it, and I was just like, man, I would really like to talk to her. She seems like she really picks out great questions.
Oh, yay.
And so the stuff that I covered on your channel, I was going through it. I'm like, okay, so they've got these culture topics, we've got these scientific topics, and then suddenly you started getting into gaming. I'm like, what?
I know, it's like, it's so random. I just wanted to share what I'm going through in life, and that was like a big thing for me. Because I'd never done it before, and it also doesn't feel like gaming, because it's storying for me.
Yeah. There's a lot of let's say AAA games. It's like it's not about the gameplay. It's about like these are movies you're playing,
Hmm. Hmm.
basically.
Yeah, I got really into Witcher with my husband, and we're like, we need more Witcher. All the books are sold out, though. Okay, Witcher 3. And then we were like, this was amazing. What other kind of, like, my husband had already sort of liked those kind of games anyway. He really liked The Last of Us and Horizon Zero Dawn. And
Mm.
he's getting our kids to play that one, our 6 and 8-year-old. The 4-year-old's a little young, but he's getting them to play that one. Anyway, so yeah, he was already like interested in those, but now it's like, oh, we can do it together. So that was kind of cool. But I think it was the video game stuff kind of has to do with me diving into meaning and narrative. So
Mm.
it is a little connected, even though I didn't mean for it to be. So anyway.
Also, I find once a person starts walking their path, all of their major interests is a part of it, whether it seems like it or not from the outside. There's some inner, like with Kemet Bailey's program he put together, what is it? The character arc. Yeah, I think it's the character arc. But like he goes in depth at examining how what shines to us tells us a lot about ourselves, and I believe that all the synchronicity stuff has a metaphysical aspect to it as well. And that once you start walking your path, if something shines to you with meaning and that you find it very interesting, there's a reason for it, no matter how silly that might be to everyone else. That looked at properly, you'll see some symbolic connection or something like that. So it doesn't surprise me in the least that you found that hobby seemed like more than just that hobby on its own, and that it seemed to connect with everything else.
Agreed.
Something
Agreed.
that a lot of the folks on the Discord have kind of fallen into is that I see the pattern of when they get into this stuff, they stop playing a lot of video games. And it's just like,
Oh.
well, I understand that. Like because when I got into it, a lot of the psychology and like looking for meaning, like suddenly the meaning of video games fell away, because I'm like, okay, what am I learning? What's the story? What's the purpose of this? And it just became this repetition of a boulder I was rolling up a hill. And because the stuff I was playing was free to play, and free to play stuff is just grinding. You're just going through the motions in each match and everything. And
Wait, what do you mean free to play?
free to play stuff like World of Tanks or War Thunder is it's absolutely free. Anybody can download it. You just play with a whole bunch of friends. It's all on multiplayer and that kind of stuff. But there's no storyline. There's no plot.
Oh,
It's just you take whatever characters you're using or whatever tanks you're taking out into the field or planes or whatever, and you're just fighting. That's it. It's like
Okay.
it's like Call of Duty multiplayer. There's no story to Call of Duty multiplayer, but this is just a free version of these massive battles and all this stuff, and you're just grinding through and getting minuscule amounts of points each game, and then eventually you get to the point where you can have that next bit that you got the next tank or the next plane or the next gun or whatever, and it's a whole lot of grinding. They call it grinding because it's literally churning through the whole thing. It's slow and it feels kind of painful at a certain point.
Why are you choosing?
Well,
Because there was a striving for it. You could actually get that feeling of accomplishment once you get to the next thing or the next tank, or you have some
Okay.
interest or something.
There's a payoff.
those feed on the meaning crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Before people have started recognizing the meaning crisis as a call to adventure, they have that inner need for that slow progression that builds up. And, just like Peterson says, you do the small work and it starts, picking up, and then you fix the next thing. And like Peterson's self-help is a grind. It's not come for a weekend and suddenly your whole life is perfect. Like his self-help is that grind, or working through the meaning crisis is that grind. It's not an instant reward shit. It's not like taking cocaine. It's you're trusting it pays off down the road. And for people lacking that direction in their life entirely, that game fills that need.
Right, but
it becomes addictive.
But
the other way, though, you can use a game like that is somewhat meditatively. I sometimes, like I did notice that once on my path, video games no longer had that meaning they used to. But I can use them in a meditative way because I've often got two trains of thought. And so sometimes the way to slow down and examine an idea for me is to put on some sort of grind game or a movie I've already seen over and over again, and to allow part of my brain to just be casually playing the game, that it doesn't even take any focus. And then I can do shadow work in the back, or I can be examining some idea and thinking about it without the second part of my brain getting distracted by shit.
Okay.
So I find I can use those games in a meditative state, but before walking my path, I could get addicted to those, and looking back on it, I can see it filling the meaning crisis.
So you had a butt in there, Andrea. What was that?
Well, it always, so you were saying about the idea of people getting into the Discord group, the Bridges of Meaning Discord group, kind of stopping those types of games, though.
Mm-hmm.
So where were you going with that?
Where I was going with that is that they get into it, they stop because they've gotten into that frame of mind where what's the meaning of this? What's the point? What am I getting out of it? Is this helping me? And then, you get into that, those analogies of, playing video games covered in Cheeto dust. And like, I can see that. Like, it makes a lot of sense. It's just like they're doling out this idea that, hey, here's this adventure we're offering you, and it's free. It's like, oh, okay, free adventure. That's great. Well, but there's no storyline to these free adventures, and so that kind of falls off. And a lot of these games get to the point, like with World of Tanks and with War Thunder.
Those name titles.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
They're competitors, but they get to this point where you're getting the same amount of experience in each and everything. You have this like a fixed amount of money. Like it isn't actually fixed, but it feels fixed because you don't really tend to get over this amount. It's like 1,000 or something is like a good game. And all of this stuff is hundreds of thousands of experience in cost. And it gets to the point where that grind becomes way too much, and you just feel like you're not getting any farther ahead. And that's where I got with World of Tanks. And eventually, when I got there, I canceled my Xbox subscription because I was just like, this is just wasting my time. I'm not going to move ahead.
Well, and I think that the video games, okay, I don't have a breadth of comparison, so
Mhm.
I am extremely biased. I think that like the video games I've been playing, well, I mean, if you're talking about free versus like paying, like you have to pay for these large narrative games.
Yeah.
The payoff is the story. Like the
Mhm.
payoff is you getting involved with the story and watching it move along, and you're very invested and you care about the characters, especially the one that we played most recently was God of War, the
Mm.
latest one, and
Yeah.
it is so good. Like we actually decided to watch YouTube videos where they sum up the previous iterations, because like
Mhm.
who's gonna go play the old ones if you
Yeah.
haven't. So we were like, okay, we want to know the storyline, like, and it's insane the stuff that Kratos. Have you played them?
No, but I've watched them, and
Okay,
yeah,
okay,
it's a crazy storyline.
okay.
They've
So we
completely tipped the whole
I know
narrative on its head.
I don't even want to go into it tons. But it's insane.
Yeah.
He like killing insanely. Not really my cup of tea actually. Like those old ones, but this one I don't know. Like what Mercury was saying about how things just kind of align in the right time, and it's like, is it a coincidence? But the latest one, it falls in line with that deep meaning, like it's father and son, and
Because he has a
the
reason.
what
He has a reason.
but the first one he lost his wife and children too. He killed them
Yeah.
accidentally, like accidentally, like but
That's
this
just a
one.
revenge story.
Well, but in this one, it's not. It's like a different. It's like a connection story. It's
Yeah.
a different sort of space, and it's about. It's like a character-driven story, which is really like bold move video games, right?
Character action game.
Yeah,
That
yeah. I mean,
what?
there's action. Sorry, there is action. There's dragons and there's
Yeah,
dwarves.
no, I know, but
Yeah,
I mean, like, character and action don't usually go that well together
yeah.
in video games
Yeah, but
nowadays.
this does, like, it
Yeah.
because I've actually talked to people like who commented on. I think that I shared it. I talked about it on Twitter, and people were like, "I cried." Like it's very it's. I need to make a video like a meaning. I'm gonna like to try my hand at the Pajot like meaning, the depth of meaning like on that one, because it's just so the story is very powerful. The You don't get a lot of father son stuff. It's usually like the dad with the daughter or the mom with the son, but like a father son, like it's very powerful. And I have 3 sons as well, so
Yeah.
I'm really in tune to that. So
Yeah, it's rare, and that's also probably why it's so popular, because it's just like, I haven't seen this before, or
mm,
somebody who doesn't have a father is like, I've never seen that dynamic before. It's just like, oh, well, then you're in for a trip, because
mm,
like we're showing you mentorship, and
and
that's what
he's
my
not great at the beginning. Like
oh no, yeah,
he's not great at all.
he
Like
he has a lot of it is him learning to, like, oh, I
boy,
actually I
to
actually
use
have
his
to
name.
figure this out.
Yeah, like at the beginning, it's like, boy, come
Hmm.
here. You must close your heart to them, to their pain, because they would kill you. Like, he just like, but I feel bad for killing them. They would kill you in a moment, boy. And it's like, oh,
Yeah,
whoa.
yeah. You need you need the harsh, but you also need the balance of, like, okay, how do I say this? How do I say this differently? Because some people just want to teach people stuff, and it's just like, no, no, no. You gotta put it in their language and get to them. If you don't get to them, teaching them isn't gonna do anything.
Mm. Well, and also a big thing was him telling the truth about his past,
Mm,
about them being gods, and how it just like it's so relatable, considering it's a Greek god who moved up to the Nordic regions and are dealing with those gods. Like, it's rather relatable considering the
well,
storyline.
and he started as a man, so that, like, the entire idea is that it's supposed to be relatable. It's just like, here's this giant tragic success story. It's like, what? No, it's like I became a god, killed all the rest of them, and then went on vacation.
Yeah, and had a kid.
And had a kid.
And
It's
then
like,
needed to learn some father lessons. So
yeah.
anyways, sorry we ended up going on a bit of a video game tangent there, but
No, that's on purpose though. I wanted to bring up the video games. Because the stories in video games have fallen off to the wayside, and it seems like a lot of the stories nowadays have done that as well. Because
okay.
the major dynamic, the one I constantly bring up is that there's no normal relationships in media. It's like if somebody is in a stable marriage, something bad has to happen to that marriage in a story. It's just like, or if nothing happens to that relationship or marriage, you're the boring guy in the background.
Oh, do you have example? I need examples. Wait, Mercury, you're nodding.
Yeah, because me and Kevin had talked about this before. But also, I'm just wondering. So, is everything with the video games, is that part of the podcast, or do we want to start?
Yeah, I
kind
of thought.
Already started.
That's
I think I said
it.
take it away, Kevin.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
but no, I see what he means about the hero of the story so rarely has a family. Or it's like with Punisher, the way he was like he was a cop who had a wife and kids, and he doesn't go on the hero's adventure until his wife and kids are killed. The hero of the story usually has either a dysfunctional relationship or has no relationship. Also, even look at like with Lord of the Rings, the hobbits who go off on the adventure don't have a wife and kids. They're the single hobbits that go off adventure. Gandalf doesn't have a wife and kids. The most interesting characters don't have a stable home life. And especially with the way you guys were pointing out that there's not a lot of stories about a father and son relationship. That's fucking weird. Because that used to be all the stories.
Yeah.
So I hadn't noticed that until you guys were saying it. Although I'd noticed that other family dynamic, which necessarily means that you don't have the traditional father-son stories of the son learning to be whatever the father does.
There's
I wonder, is that by design somewhere, or is that an act of the collective unconscious, in your opinion, Kevin? Like, somehow, is this like for the people who see the hand of some sort of societal control, whether it's the church, the government, the Illuminati, or whatever? Do you see a hand of manipulation here?
No, I see an internal
the collective unconscious responding to the change in the world.
Yeah, it's an internal pain. It's not manipulation. It's like this is a story I've been through, or I didn't have a father, or my parents were divorced, and so, or I have all of these terrible relationships. So they write them into these stories because that's what they know. And it makes sense. You look at Hollywood and they all have like 4 or 5 different marriages, and it's just like, well, okay, it's like it doesn't surprise me. But something popped into my head while you were saying that stuff is like, I do remember a relationship that stayed stable and loving the whole time through the story. Lethal Weapon.
I haven't seen those in so long.
I haven't seen them in a long time.
Donald Glover's family sticks with him the whole time. But you've got Mel Gibson playing the crazy guy, and he has to teach Mel how to be normal. Like you've got the family man, and you've got the guy trying to throw himself at danger in everything, and he's slowly teaching him and showing him, here's what a family looks like. Here's what a normal life looks like, even though he's in the same dangerous job. It's like, listen, you can be in this dangerous situation and still have this.
Also, like when I look back, I was just as drawn to all these characters with the broken home life, but I didn't have that. I had an excellent home life. Like my parents are still together, live on the farm right next to where I live. I've got a brother that was 2 years younger, and then there's a bigger gap, but I'm the oldest of 5 kids. Neither of my parents have like mental issues or addiction problems. I had a great home life growing up. I never connected with my dad in that way. Like I love my dad and everything, but I never saw him as a role model because I never felt like the same species. Like my father's very grounded, very down to earth. He's like a farmer. He's interested in nonfiction, the news, and he's not mystical at all. So me and my dad have a great relationship. We love each other, but I know he doesn't understand what I am. And I'm like the black sheep of the family. So I never had that dynamic with my father. I was trying, and yeah, I didn't feel like I fit into society even from small. But I had the good home life, yet those stories still shone for me. And as you were talking about, like, or when you said, oh, I thought of one that had a stable relationship.
Yeah.
Before you said it, my mind was searching and I came across in the Fantastic Four, Reed and Sue Richards have a stable relationship beginning to end. Also, their child, and I stopped following comics in the 90s, so I haven't read it, but I'm aware that Franklin is like becomes one of the most powerful beings in the Marvel universe eventually. So their relationship stays stable, but it's because the woman goes on the adventure with him.
I've got a booklet somewhere around here. I don't know where, but if you, it's like it came with the Fantastic Four DVD, the old one, the one that they did where they kept making the jokes about what if you superheat or super cool rubber or whatever. It's just like in that one, I think Captain America was.
He was the flame guy.
Yeah, Johnny Storm. Yeah. And so this booklet came with it, and I'm flipping through all this stuff, and it says son of this person, son of that person, daughter of this person, daughter of that person. It's like these characters used to have kids. Like almost all of them. Like you and they would grow to either be this next great hero or this villain, and they stopped that. They stopped having kids, and they just kept the same hero or changed the person entirely. And it's just like, what happened? What?
Okay, well, guys, I kind of disagree a little. I don't know if I disagree or not. You might actually like agree with me here. I'm not sure. Like I feel like I think stories have always been about the dysfunctional ones because those are the ones that we have conflict built right in. I interviewed a guy, I can't remember his name, but he was doing his PhD on I think on narratives at Harvard, and he was talking. He wrote an article called "Orphans and Their Quests," and it's about going throughout the world and seeing commonalities, and that's that often the hero is an orphan, and why are they orphans? Like, or at least lost one parent, and it's because there's a sort of a draw that we have a sort of, we already naturally sympathize with someone coming from that sort of a background. And like, I mean, I'm thinking about the Greek myths, and like, they were all messed up, very messed up families. Like, you know, so that's why I'm like, look at like in the 70s with Star Wars, like poor Luke, you know, all the superheroes, like, isn't that just the norm? Like,
it's both though, but the thing is that it started dropping off more drastically. So you would keep having the heroes be orphans, but you would also stop them from having kids. Like there was a point. What was that? There recently there was it was Mr. Miracle. They did a great comic book run. I think it was like 12 issues in last, I think it was 2 years ago, where you see his home life. He's with Big Barda, and they're going through like their domestic life, and like maybe we should knock out that wall and make a new room or whatever, like all of these things. And they're having this conversation in the middle of a battle because this is just work for them.
Okay.
And so finally, like at the end of this huge fight, she turns to him and says, "I'm pregnant," and he just stops and he punches someone in the face and goes, "Wow."
Yeah.
It's just like, wow. And suddenly I was interested. Well, and then you go forward in the story and things start falling apart and you're like, what's going on? What's happening? And it turns out this entire thing is one of those dream sequences. It's just like, can anyone grow anymore?
Oh, okay. Well, I know that they're doing Marvel is doing I believe a TV series on Wanda and Vision.
Mm-hmm.
It's called WandaVision.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're gonna have their twins, and they're gonna follow that storyline. So that'll be kind of like what you were looking for.
No, yeah, no, that's the same problem, is that
Wait, why?
if you don't know the House of M story of what
Well, I
happens
know
to
that-
those twins.
Do they grow up to like one of them is bad or something?
No,
I don't know.
no.
I don't know where that continues.
Maybe
Like,
don't
I
tell
know
me.
Don't. Okay, I won't tell you. I won't tell
Because I
you.
want to watch it and be surprised.
Okay. But the entire premise of WandaVision is that it's her vision.
Oh, okay.
She's making this reality. And so, because she's
okay.
extremely powerful. She's way more powerful than people understand.
Right. Then that's what this is supposed to show, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's a modern interpretation of the House of M storyline.
Okay.
Of what happens and what makes
Okay,
her.
wait. I want to know what is the problem. I'm a little fuzzy on what's the problem that it sounds like you think like it's a something that you're concerned about, or it's not, that you wish it would go a different way. What's happening in storytelling?
Yeah. I wish I had more instances at which I could point to stories and say, like, or that I could, like, if I had kids, that I could show to my kids and say, hey, here's a great modern tale that I could show to you to help you get a storyline that helps you model things. Like, a story that really helped me was Princess Bride. It was hilarious, it was ridiculous, but there was a drive in there. It's just like he had a goal and he went for it, and he went through crazy things, but he had to grow through he had to grow off screen. He grew. And so you're hearing about it after he comes back and telling his story of what happened to him. And it only helped that it was also a comedy, because you know you tend to remember more things when you're having fun or laughing about something.
Right.
But that it's not that concrete. And so when I was writing my book, I'm like, okay, I want to write a book that is like, I want to write what I want to read. Like, here's the story that I want to be able to pick up. But the issues that I'm running into is that I've got to use all of those tropes that I hate to build the story that I want.
Wait, why? Why do you hate certain tropes?
Well, in comic books, this is the trope of nobody is ever actually dead.
Okay.
It's like the only people that I know that are actually dead are Batman's parents and Uncle Ben.
All right.
It's just like,
well,
they have to die.
Yeah.
It's like everyone else is like, well, are Superman's parents actually dead? Well, actually, no. Like, there's some survivors. Like, what happened? It's like there's all of this random stuff. It's like the only people I know that are dead are Batman's parents and Uncle Ben.
Okay.
So the no one is dead thing comes up a lot in my story, but there is someone who is actually dead, and it
Okay.
really hurts. And
Well,
I had to
then you
write
didn't
that.
have to do that. No, yeah, you didn't have to do the trope of that then, that maybe they're not dead. So,
Yeah, but I have to do that for a lot of other characters because it plays into the whole story.
but don't you think it's a trope because it's sometimes just needed?
It is needed, but it's when it's when they come back and it makes a prior point pointless. Like a pointless sacrifice.
Okay. Yeah, it's an earned thing. It's
Yeah,
got to be earned.
an earned thing actually pays off if you brought somebody back like they did in the Avengers, where they brought Gamora back, but it's not the same Gamora, so all of her plot is completely pointless, and her romance with um Star-Lord isn't there because she has
Yeah.
no idea who he is, and
They did
he's
a really
chasing
bad
after her,
job.
and she
I know,
doesn't care about
but
him.
they did a bad job of that relationship anyway. But
Yeah,
sorry.
but it's still a relationship. There's still
Yeah.
there was still something there, and so you can still see it in him, and she like shoots him or something. It's just
Okay,
like,
okay, I can see why that one doesn't work, but on the other side they did have um what's Scarlet? Oh, Black Widow for real die. Like for real.
yes,
And that
yeah,
worked. What and it was sad.
yes, it
Even though
did.
and they had it that like Bruce Banner like tried to he's like, I tried in the snap. I tried. And
Yeah, yeah,
so
and
that one paid off, right? Like that was a good example of that. Like
it did pay off. But I'm also worried about what they're going to go forward with the future, because they also made a Black Widow movie, and it's
which
just
is in
like,
between. No, I think
yeah,
yeah,
I
they
know
just
it.
have
I know
this
it's a prequel. I know
okay.
it's a prequel, but I'm just saying, like, with the way things are going, like, this sounds like they're gonna do something about that,
Oh,
and
okay. So
it,
we'll have to see.
yeah,
And
and I,
perhaps
yeah,
perhaps
go
the
ahead.
problem there though is that they're trying to force proper adult stories into comic book characters that weren't meant for that. The thing
Yeah,
about the Avengers
yeah,
and the Hulk and Spider-Man is they're like the Simpsons. It's not about telling a mature story. It's
Go
about
talk
having
to Daddy.
an unchanging background
yeah.
to play stories with over and over again. So not only do characters like, and again, now I'm separating from the rest of fiction, but maybe that's one problem right now is comic books have infiltrated the mainstream media to such an extent, and those characters are not designed to age, to be realistic, or to die.
Superman was for like 10-year-olds.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
No, they all are.
Yeah,
It's characters designed for children, where so it's supposed to be something simple and unchanging. The
yeah,
characters aren't supposed to age. This isn't supposed to be Dante's Inferno. These
mhm,
Right.
characters are for children, and because the creators seem to intuitively recognize that we were missing our pantheon of gods. They used those archetypes, the adult generation right now imprinted on that. And so we're trying to tell biblical tales using children's characters. And while I love the fact that we're making great movies out of these characters I like, I see Alan Moore's point that, like, that's not progressing society. That's our fucking fast food movies.
Okay, and yeah, I am seeing yes, we're trying to make myths. Like you said, I was thinking it as you were describing it there, Mercury. I'm like, oh, we're trying to make myths. We're trying to make these to be our narratives, our non-religious narratives for our
mhm.
society. And but they're not made through storytelling around a fire where people are um, uh, like having each line memorized and going across like Greece and saying these like these poems and until eventually they're written down, but really really steeped in this tradition, this oral tradition. It's made by corporations who are looking to make the most amount of money with the widest net cast, which is mostly over in Asia. So we can't have much character development anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But we're making them our stories, even though they're just made to make money. And like, yes, it's wonderful if they are good, but that's actually not really the priority, it seems like.
Yeah.
And we're not treating our art seriously. That's the other thing, is the people who created the characters didn't take seriously what art is. They took it as though art is entertainment and a commodity. And that's not what it is. It's psychotechnology. It's absolute magic. It's society and consciousness altering magic. And they didn't, like, well, to a certain degree, like, to the degree that Stan Lee realized that, or Jack Kirby realized that, is where the best shit goes into it. So to the degree they realize, like, hey, orphans need someone to look up to, you know, the characters need a human side, or like, I know Jack Kirby was thinking of Galactus as representing God, the Silver Surfer is representing like the angel or the Christ figure. And to a certain degree, like, I know Stan Lee would think you've got to have good role models and use Spider-Man to keep kids from taking drugs and don't drop out of school kids, or the way Masters of the Universe had the little lesson at the end. So we realized it to that degree, that the characters had some influence over the children, but we weren't taking it seriously like, hey, we're manipulating reality by creating these characters. We've told all our artists this is entertainment. We haven't said, listen, you're going to alter our consciousness. Take this very seriously.
What's happening recently with comic books is that it seems like whole artists are taking these franchises and deliberately trying to make their audience mad at them. And like the biggest storyline where this happened, I read personally and was like, I'm done. Like, I'm not dealing with this anymore. It was Spider-Man.
Okay.
In Spider-Man, they ruined it. Okay. Spider-Man finally marries Mary Jane.
Yeah.
I think it was like 5 issues later. Mephisto comes out of nowhere saying, Aunt May is dead. I have her soul, and what I want in exchange is your marriage.
Why?
And they give it up. And it's just like, the writer specifically wanted to undo the marriage.
Yeah.
It's just tough. Like, we finally got this payoff that has been going on for
a long time.
Like, what is it? How long? 50 years? It's just like, my gosh.
It's because they're trying to keep the character unchanging. That's not what Spider-Man's meant to do. He's not meant to evolve, have children, grow old, and retire. He's meant to eternally, so that whether you make the cartoon in the 50s, the 70s, the 90s, or in the year 3000, an animation of Spider-Man will still be a college student, single, pining for the girl next door, because that's not what the character's designed for.
Okay,
make interesting adult stories out of those characters.
Yeah.
But then you're really warping it. And you can't do both. You can't make it really Spider-Man and have it get married. It just doesn't work. We're trying to
go ahead, Andrew.
Okay, I have a question then. So I kind of like, glazed over just talking about like those ancient stories of going around the fire and refining themselves in such a way. So why do you think those stories worked? Like they worked for the culture. Again, this was one culture, so maybe that's what it is like one culture as opposed to a global situation. But why do you think those stories worked and these ones aren't? They don't have the same payoff?
Because they had a very specific focus. If you took a comic book story from now, and then you gave it to an old storyteller, they'd say, "But what am I learning? Like, what's the point of this?" and that's extremely hard to pick out. It's just like, oh, well, it's just learning duty. It's like, well, if you're learning duty over and over and over again, it's just going to get boring. It's like, okay, I'm going to tell you one story that's going to tell you that if God says something to you and you trust him, you'll get through it. David and the Lion, and the David and Goliath, or Daniel and the Lion's Den. It's just like, here's stories of faith. It's like, okay, there it is. That makes sense. I get that. Or I'm going to tell you a story about how you need to get by on your own and not rely on the whims of these wrathful gods. And then you suddenly got the Odyssey, and he's working against these gods that are trying to keep him from getting home because they just don't like him. And I think the main antagonist is Poseidon there, because he said, I took Troy without you, and so Poseidon says, "Oh, really? So I'll make sure you take 30 years to get back home." It's like, so on one hand, it became a story of don't diss the gods. On the other hand, it became a triumph over the gods. It's just like, okay, well, what story are you trying to tell here? Well, it depends on who's telling the story.
Okay, but this answers, oh, you need the test of time. That's kind of the answer I'm getting from you. But I'm like, we don't have the time. Like, we don't have that time to.
No, we have the stories.
So you're saying it's, well, wait, but you're writing a book. Like, why then? Why even when all the ones have stood the test of time, they're already here. We don't need to. Like, that's I'm taking it a little bit to the extreme here, but
no, yeah, that makes sense. It's because, like, I don't know what I'm writing. So I asked Charlie the other day to read my book because he had offered. He said, "Hey, since Voth passed, I know he was reading your book. I know he was helping you out. Can I help you out with it?" I said, "Absolutely, absolutely." And he's the first person to read my book cover to cover that I've given it to read, and I'm so grateful for it because when he went through it, he started sending me message after message after message on Discord. He's like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't realize that what was going on here and all this other stuff," and I was just like, most of the stuff that he was messaging me about was not written in the book.
What do you mean?
None of, like, he said, I think the first thing that he said was, "Do you want me to tell you about what happened to Kokomo?" And she's like a manager for the main character at the beginning. She's the captain of the ship. And I said, what do you mean? He's like, "Well, I know how she grew up." It's like, I didn't write how she grew up. I didn't write any of her past. And he writes out this fully detailed thing about her father did not love her and abused her and did bad things to her, and the way that she goes from relationship to relationship, so she's looking for the love that her father never gave her, and Dusty knows that he's not that guy, and so he's molding Tom into the man that she needs. And it's like I never wrote any of that, but that's exactly what's happening. And it blew my mind because he's telling me things I didn't know about my own book, and I had no idea. Like, the premise of the book is three major ideas. What if the Joker was a good guy? What if the focus was not on the main character but on the sage that has to mentor them the whole way through, and how do we navigate tragedy? And I tried to make my main character a sage by making him do these quippy one-liners and write things down in a book so that that book will be venerated later on. And he's trying to teach people and be witty and all this stuff. But when Charlie got through it, he said he is so he's so manipulative. Like he gets right into Tom, and he's always egging him on. He's like pushing him just a little bit farther and a little bit farther. I'm like, where are you seeing this? Like, what page? I want to know what line this is written on. He's like, no, it's just happening. I'm like, where is this happening? And so that's why I say I don't know what I'm writing, because I'm not seeing this stuff while I'm writing it. These are the things that are coming out. And when Charlie told me about this stuff, I went, oh my gosh, it's true. This is where he checks to see if Tom can be cool under pressure. This is where he can check if he knows how to assert himself. You know, here's how he can check if he knows how to follow orders. It's like, here's all of these tiny lessons, and then he's just slowly nudging him in ways that he needs. And it's all trying to go towards other people's good, even though it looks like it's a completely selfish act. Because the entire idea is, I want to get this kid into my position so I can leave.
Okay.
And that's what the surface level looks like. And I had no idea how much deeper that got until Charlie told me.
So that to me sounds like evidence on the side of the muses being real, or the way Stephen King described it. He felt he doesn't write his material. He feels he discovers it. Also, Peterson says, you know, a good artist should essentially, I forget how he words it, but he's using another wording for that. A good artist downloads something from somewhere, not that they invent it. And so it sounds to me like you actually found real characters that exist somewhere, whether you want to call it Fantastica or the collective unconscious or whatever. But you found real characters. And by just writing what you saw of them, you included details that you didn't know why they were there, because you were just writing down what you were seeing with your imaginative eye. And that therefore it's very easy for, whether it's the angels or some sort of information set, like a morphic resonance field, like whatever it is, however anthropomorphic or what, but that something can communicate through an artist where the artist will only understand a portion of it. And that drives some of that obsession over little details, and the artist doesn't know why. But for some reason, she's got to be this. And for some reason, it's got to be a frog, not a lizard. And, you know, they get obsessed over weird things. So it seems to me like you're describing that you've connected to something, written down a story from somewhere. And so when someone else looked at it, the same way that if Andrea took a photo and showed it to both of us, we might both notice different things in the photo, like get different info from it. You've taken a photo where your conscious mind understood some of it, but was faithful to representing it so that you passed on information without being aware you were doing so.
Okay, so I've come to the understanding through the story that you were saying, Kevin, that you can draw from inspiration or the muses or wherever ideas come from, and you don't have to wait. I mean, we don't know, 100%, but that you can tap in. I'm thinking like the Harry Potter story, like that clearly resonated with people. Like it's not had thousands of years. It honestly will probably be remembered for thousands of years. And like, I mean, for yours, it sounds like there's a depth there, you know, and so you're saying there can be depth. It doesn't mean we don't need thousands of years necessarily. Of course, it helps. But what are other people doing? Is it just the like money? Like, is that why they're doing a bad job, or what?
It's not money. It's focus groups.
Okay.
You ask too many people their opinion, and you will not get a straight answer. So here's why the Marvel Cinematic
I'm thinking
Universe.
Star Wars. I'm thinking of the The last, yeah.
So the last one. But you look at the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Here's why that is a great run, all the way to the last Avengers. Here's why that's fantastic. Because one guy was in charge.
Okay.
There was one vision from one guy running through all of this, even though a whole bunch of different people wrote it. He kept it in line.
Who was it? I don't remember.
Kevin something.
Oh, okay. So it's not a super known name.
No, he's known. I just don't have his name in my Feige.
Oh, I know that name.
I think so.
Yeah.
So he figured it out. He figured out the plot lines. He figured out how to tie everything together. He did it from the beginning all the way to the end, and it all works.
Okay.
So if you put it's like the camel was a creature designed by a committee.
It was a horse designed by committee.
Yeah, a horse. Yeah, the camel is a horse designed by a committee. It's like
Okay.
It doesn't make any sense. It's so weird looking. It's all lopsided. It's like this is if you want to make a horse, you figure out what does a horse look like. Okay, let's make something like that. Make a little bit better. Not, well, let's put a little more cushion on the back and let's clove in the hooves a little and make it spit. And it's like, why?
Okay.
Yeah. Feige. Yeah, Kevin Feige. Yeah. Shane got it.
And sometimes there's an advantage to taking the other route, because sometimes it's nice to get something like a platypus. Like it's awesome that there's that in nature. But often you need a horse or something where, and maybe that phenomenon of turning too much to focus groups is also what Peterson says about us not wanting to respect authority, is you need a good enough artist at the center who's the authority on that project and who doesn't need to take everyone else's feelings into mind, where they can just be like, nope, that's not what this is fucking about. And you get back on target to what that person wants.
Yeah. So if you can find a through line, one road, that's it. Like not, it's that don't turn to the left or the right. If you actually figure out the road and go straight down that, you can usually get a really good story out of it.
Okay, I have a question. Okay, what about, because I brought the latest Star Wars. What about episodes 1, 2, and 3? Because that scene, and I mean like the middle new ones, like that one, I thought were because too many people were yes-manning George Lucas. Like yes, yeah, that's great. Yeah, let's have him be. It's doing a pod race and midi-chlorines and no father and.
Yeah, it's a mixture of things. On one hand, the original series was saved in the edit. So the very first movie was edited by George Lucas's wife, and she was the one that made the whole story make sense.
Okay.
So because George Lucas is, while visionary, is not very good at making things look good.
Okay.
So he needs a team around him to focus his vision. But there's a difference between having a council of advisors, which is a very good thing for a king to have, and having a committee. A committee is a whole bunch of equals that all get equal say and can throw anything they want in, and that makes a camel. The council of advisors can help you focus into one direction.
But you have the final say, though.
But yeah, but George Lucas had the final say.
What happened to him with episodes 1, 2, and 3 then?
So 1, 2, and 3, not the original.
I'm going by like the real letter or numbers.
Okay, so
the middle new Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah, Jar Jar Binks. Jar Jar Binks was because he wanted
Mercury just left.
Yeah, he wanted a funny character. That was it. Like the entire idea behind Jar Jar Binks was he wanted a funny character. the
That was-
fun the funniest part about Jar Jar Binks is that character grew in such a way that you turned this clown, which it's funny that you just talked to Pajot because this really flips around. This
Yeah.
clown gets into politics, and he's the guy that gives ultimate power to
Yeah.
Palpatine.
Actually, that looks pretty cool. Yeah, I can see that symbolism being pretty interesting, being that
Yeah.
final. Okay, but clearly here, hold on. Hey, Mercury, welcome back. I like him. You just left.
Great
Okay.
having you here. I can just slip away and listen
know.
at a distance.
Yeah, here it is. Here it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
you heard us.
Yeah, I was following Jar Jar.
They're in spirit. Okay, so okay, but it wasn't. I mean, the numbers 1, 2, and 3 are looking pretty good compared to 7, 8, 9.
Yes.
But 1, 2, and 3, like there's. I've seen alternatives. You know, when those YouTubers like make their like, if only there was like a love triangle between Obi-Wan and Padme and Anakin, that would have made more sense. You know, whatever.
Honestly, I just think that would have been gross. I don't think that would have been.
Well, okay, whatever. If you make, that's not your cup of tea for the alternative, but there are, you know, and there, I think it could have been better.
Yeah.
Do you not like what went wrong there for him?
So like why did certain aspects of the prequel trilogy flop?
Yes.
That's your question. Okay.
Yes.
So a lot of things worked and a lot of things didn't. The second movie has this giant doldrum in the middle where it's Padme and Anakin getting to know each other, and that a lot of it is just bad storytelling. And like I said, in A New Hope, that was saved in the edit.
Why wasn't it saved in the edit?
Because they didn't have his wife around
what
to
happened
edit
to his
that
wife?
movie. They got divorced after the first movie.
Well, effing F that, George Lucas. Thank you for ruining. Honestly, that's it. That's the answer I was looking for.
Well, okay, so and what was
the
it?
feminine is the framing.
Yes,
That talk, Mercury, you're in my talk. With my show, it sees the frame, and when the frame leaves, the whole thing falls apart.
Yes, exactly. He should never have gotten divorced.
Should not have.
We would have had a great prequel trilogy.
Yeah, we would have.
Also, I think one of the problems with like the lack of quality in our fiction goes back to that the feminine's missing, where it's the very first question is wrong. But why are we making this?
Yeah.
Why are we making this movie? Why are we writing the book? The answer isn't because we intend to alter people's consciousness towards the better. The answer is usually, I want a career. We need to entertain people. It's the wrong question right at the beginning.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And when Charlie told me all of this stuff that's going on in my book, like there's even more that I haven't mentioned. But when he started going into all of these things, I'm just like, wait a second. So if he can pick that out, that means other people can pick that out, which means I've done my job. That's a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that if they can